This is a Kom'rk-class fighter transport. I'll use this to drop you in, and you will operate as a tight military unit. Dinjarin and myself will reinforce from above. If everyone acts as they should, we can use the element of surprise and defeat an enemy that outnumbers us. This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Something's coming up on its back. It looks like a squadron of TIE interceptors.
Where'd they come from?
I've stubbed off a lot of Imperial warlords.
They tend to get mad when you hijack their ships.
Now you tell me.
Interceptors are a lot tougher than TIE fighters.
Thanks for the backup.
2 more to go. 1 down, 1 more to go.
On it.
What's up, shipbuilders? Now, did you know you can now download Mandalorian armor via Creations? That, along with the newly released Trackers Alliance Guild, complements these 2 ship builds very nicely. Now, I do have all achievements unlocked in my game, but I'm still going to keep things vanilla for those of you that choose to do that. And for this Kom'rk Fighter and N1 Starfighter, we're not only going to build the versions that I typically fly, but I'm going to show you some other variants that use different engines and allow for variations on performance and cargo space too. I've gone in depth on my other video on ship upgrades that I believe there are 3 classes of ships. And no, they're not A, B, and C, though in some respects they loosely correlate. What I'm talking about is the lightweight dedicated combat ship that forgoes cargo space in service of top speed and maximum engine performance. Then there's the good at everything master of nothing ship class, or what I'd call the all-arounder, which tries to find a balance between decent top speed and decent cargo space, but isn't the best at either of them. And finally, there's the slow, heavy cargo hauler, which prioritizes cargo over top speed, and occasionally even maneuverability. Well, for the Kom'rk Fighter and N1 Starfighter, I'm going to show how you can build either of these ships to accommodate all of these desired ship classes, and still have it fit the aesthetic of these iconic ships. And even more exciting, a fellow shipbuilder sent me their take on some Mandalorian ship builds and agreed to let me share them with you. Jaden, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong and I apologize, built these 3 Mandalorian ships. Now this was prioritizing aesthetics over performance, and used a few glitches on some of the wing pieces. They look incredible. I mean, well done. Before any of you ask, I did not see these builds prior to building my version, nor did they see mine. They simply wanted to share. And I love them. I think they're incredible. Now, if you also want to share your builds, or if you want to see how I might optimize one of your builds, feel free to send them over. I'd love to share them in a future video. So let's look at the major systems for this ship. To start, I'm using the SF-40 Sheared Flow Reactor. I typically use either the Pinch 8A reactor for its incredibly high health points, or the Pinch 8Z version, which sacrifices those health points for more reactor power. But the Sheared Flow provides the same amount of reactor power, 40, which is the highest in the game. It comes in with a slightly lower hull value, but also slightly lower mass. So I chose it for this ship not only to give it the love I feel it deserves, but also because I felt it fit the aesthetic of this ship better than those Pinch versions. And for the grav drive for this ship with this mass, the Aurora 13G grav drive gives us enough jump thrust to go anywhere we need to in the galaxy, so we'll save on mass where we can and not bother with a heavier grav drive. For the shield, I'm using the Vanguard Bulwark shield. This is my go-to shield when I want to keep my mass down. It has the 3rd highest health in the game. You could also elect to move up to the 28T Defender for a small bump in stats, and it will cost you about 20 points of mass. Now for the engines, I went with a bit of a mix. I have 2 of the Poseidon DT-230s on this ship. These are some of the best performing engines in the entire game in terms of engine thrust to mass and maneuvering thrust to mass. So they actually give me a lot of extra mass that I can use for cargo space and still maintain top engine performance. And then just to even get even more performance, I snuck in 2 of the SA-4330 engines right in front of those. It's a trick I do often on some of my builds just to get additional thrust to have additional cargo space and engine performance. So we've got a bit of a mix. I'm still using the full 12 possible reactor power points across my engines, but I'm getting a decent amount of cargo space with this build. And lastly, for weapons, it's a personal preference. For me, I went with 3 of these Obliterator 250 MeV Alpha turrets. These are some of the best sustained damage output weapons in the entire game. Then 3 Exterminator 95 MeV Auto Helium beams and 6 of the Vanguard Obliterator auto projectors. As far as particle beam weapons go, those are 2 of the best in terms of burst DPS and sustained DPS in the entire game. If you haven't watched my video explaining that, check it out. I'll link to it below. Now before we get started with the detail build, we'll need to do a bit of shopping. So first we're going to head to New Homestead. It's in Titan, which is a moon of Saturn, and there you're going to want to get 4 of the NG-20 landing gear. These have the highest landing thrust in the entire game. We're going to be carrying some cargo with this ship, so we're going to need it. After that, you can go to Stroud Eklund Star Yard in the Nerion system. This is where you're going to want to get your weapons. This vendor typically has a lot of high-powered weapons. And you're also going to pick up 2 of the SA-4330 engines while you're there. This vendor sells those Slayton engines, so you want to get those while you're there. For the Poseidon engines, you can get those from the ship tech on New Atlantis, just right from off the landing pad there. And then lastly, you're going to want to go to the Valo system, which is right next to the Nerion system. Go to HOPETOWN there, and you're going to want to pick up 2 of the HOPETOWN HOPETech HAB cross braces, which are a HAB cross brace, and then the Commander 500 bridge. And for the rest of the build, I always go to my outpost landing pad that has the most variety of structural pieces in the entire game. Now for the detail build, we're going to build this from scratch, 1 piece at a time. It's pretty simple given the whole thing is essentially 1 unit tall. Now obviously you have the cockpit which sits up a little bit, the landing gear which sit down a little bit, but pretty straightforward build. We're starting with the landing bay, and you'll come into the armory, and then the next part of the armory will be the docker, so there'll be a ladder down to the docker. There's not much room to hold a docker to get to the external part of this ship, so I had to put it underneath. Now the next piece we want is that Aurora 13G grav drive. This will sit underneath, kind of hidden away as well. And then we're actually going to end up mounting some weapons to this bottom layer of our ship. There's not very many pieces that allow us to kind of have an under mount for a weapon slot. This Nova cowling does when we flip it upside down. And so that's why we're going to put this on behind the grav drive, because we can actually mount a weapon to that. And then coming off the back of this, we're going to use this aft bottom version of the Tayo cowling, and that'll be on the back of our ship. Now these Tayo side caps will go on the grav drive and the HAB, and we can mount weapons to the B version of these. And so we're going to use these to put some of our weapons on as well. And that's basically it for this bottom middle layer. Now, up top, we're going to have another HAB coming off the back here. Again, choose whatever HABs you would like. I at least go with a control station, even if it's empty, just to get some extra crew slots. And then on the back of that row of HABs, we'll have our reactor. Now on the front here, we're going to put a Deimos hull piece. We could go with a 3x1 HAB if we wanted to. Again, that's up to you. Then coming off the front of this, we're going to go with the Nova weapon mount. The ship is a good excuse to use this piece, as a version of this Kom'rk fighter does seem to have kind of weapons protruding from the middle here. On either side, we're going to have the Deimos wing. And then coming off the back of those Deimos wing A pieces, we're going to use these E pieces and interchange the variants. So copy and use the D-pad to get the other variant, copy, flip it to the other variant, and then I copy these and put them on the other side. There's a lot of different ways to do this part of the Kom'rk fighter with kind of these angled pieces in the center here. So I'm sure you'll come up with something creative as well. On either side of this main hab, that's where those HOPETOWN hab cross braces come in. Those give nice little pathways to the other sides of the ship. You wouldn't have to have those. There's some Nova cross braces as well. Or if you didn't want habs on the wings, you could just use like some Deimos pieces that have kind of a bracer span as well. Now just a quick word about that cockpit, or that Commander 500 bridge. You could use a lesser version of that and it'll still look and function the same. You'll just miss out on a little bit of cargo. Cockpits are a great way to get extra cargo for the mass. So cargo to mass is actually most efficient in your cockpit choice. So it's a good way to get some extra mass on your ship. Now to finish out this center part of the Kom'rk fighter, we need a couple of Nova cowling pieces on either side of this Taio companionway Type B. So the Type B of that 1x1 has connector points on the sides. The Type A does not. That's why we went with the Type B. But that Taio companionway still has a little bit more of a rounded shape than some of the other habs. And then on either side of the reactor, we're going to use these M50 Ulysses tanks. These are the second most efficient in the game in terms of fuel to mass, and they give a bit more of a rounded shape to the back of our ship. And so that's really it for kind of the center fuselage. We're going to go ahead and copy one of these habs and put it on the side here off of the HOPETOWN cross brace, and copy the Deimos hull piece, and it'll go on the side of that. We're going to start this as kind of our foundation for the wing. Now in front of the hab, there's various options here. Initially I had another hab, but then I wanted some more cargo pieces, so I decided on this Galleon S202 cargo hold. And we'll go with two of these. It's got an interesting rounded shape on the one side. And on the other side, that's a bit more squared off, we're going to put these Deimos bumpers. So I'm going to put one facing this way, copy it, change the variant twice, and put it on the other side. So again, kind of that wavy look, I guess more angled look, I should say, to some of the sides and the space in between the center fuselage and the wings of the Kom'rk fighter. Lots of different ways to do that with those Deimos pieces. And then the Nova cowlings, they have a bit of kind of a teeth look to them as well, and so we'll finish off the front of the wing with those. We'll grab a Nova wing to put in front of the Deimos hull here. That'll give us a bit more of an angled shape to the back part of the wing, and this Stroud nose cap will finish it off, but you'll notice it doesn't quite connect to that Deimos hull. And so what we need here is actually going to be our SA4330 engine. Now if we take this and flip it once, see we get kind of a middle version. Here's the middle version facing the other way. That actually will slot here in front of the Poseidon engine without using any glitches, which is one of, I believe, the only engines that we can do that with. Now that might break your roleplay if you don't think having one engine in front of the other makes a whole lot of sense. But for me, we're still technically abiding by the game's rules for a plain vanilla build, and we can get a bit more thrust out of our ship this way. Now to find the first of our Poseidon DT230 engines. This will sit between those Stroud cap pieces. And the way it mounts is the mounts are kind of in the middle of the engine, so it sits up just a little bit. You can see here that SA4330 engine fits in there without glitching. So to kind of bridge the gap a little bit and make it look more cohesive, I'm going to put a Deimos spine on top of the SA-4330 engine, which takes us back into the Poseidon engine. I think kind of joins those two a little bit nicer. Now, for the other wing, it's just a copy of the first one. So some of these will copy and flip, like the cargo. Flip that a few times. Once you've built one, it goes pretty quick. Get those Deimos bumpers. Now we can actually select multiple pieces and copy them all at once. And obviously we'll have to flip them. This engine so it has a connector point for this Stroud nose cap. And there's our two wings. Now we're getting real close. Now up to this point we haven't put on any landing gear just yet. So let's grab our landing gear, the NG-20 landing gear that we got from New Homestead on Titan. We're going to use 4 of these. And these will line up right with our engines. They'll sit right in front of them on the wings. So we're going to duplicate that, change the variant ones so those look cohesive. One in front of the next. And then copy those and bring them to the other side. And that'll give us enough landing thrust for a ship with this mass. Usually you can approximate it by taking your total mass and divide by 200, and that's about the amount of landing thrust you'll need. And grab our shield, we're going to put this in the front. The other reason I went with this Vanguard Bulwark shield is it's just low profile, and given the entire ship is low profile, I didn't want a shield to be sticking out like a sore thumb. So that Vanguard Bulwark accomplishes that better than most. And now we are needing our weapons. So let's go ahead and get those Vanguard Obliterator auto projectors. We can have 6 of those, which is what makes them so powerful. Put 4 of them on this Nova weapon mount. Sometimes this can be a little tricky to accept all 4 of them. See, I just lost one of my mounts there. If that happens, take that one off. If I can grab it. Put it on the other side, and then let's try again. There we go. So there's 4, and then for our next 2, we'll put these underneath the Deimos wings. For our next weapon, the Exterminator 95 MEVs. We want to make sure we get the auto version so that we get a full magazine even when they're underpowered. We can have 3 of these, so to keep it symmetrical, I'm going to put 1 up top on that equipment plate, and then 2 down here on these Taio plates, 1 on either side. It gives us a lot of focused energy right at the center of this ship. Lastly, these 250 MEV Alpha turrets. We can have 3 of these. These have some of the highest sustained damage of any weapon in the game. And here we're going to use that undermount on that Nova cowling to get 3 of those underneath, facing backwards. Because we're using Class C engines, our top speed is the slowest in the game, and so we're not going to outrun anybody, but having those on the back will help protect our blind spot while we can focus damage with the other particle beams in front of us. Make sure I got the control station selected on that hab to get a bunch of crew slots, and let's apply a coat of paint. I'm going to start by painting the whole thing just a shade of gray. Something like that. Now, you can obviously spend as much time on this part as you would like. Just trying to see if I need to go a little bit darker, but it's fine for now. And we're going to put a darker strip of gray down the center of this hab. Just like that. And then for these wing pieces, we're going to have these hold our accent color, which is a blue. So I'm going to select all these and go with this darker blue color. And then the insides of these Nova Cowlings we're also going to paint blue. You'll notice some of these pieces, when they accept the same color, it's a little bit brighter or darker than some of the other pieces. So if you're particular about that, just keep an eye on it. You might have to go and adjust some pieces a little more than others. Again, you can choose to put these accents colors wherever you would like. It's not going to be perfect for how an actual Kom'rk fighter might look. So spend as much or as little time on that as you care to. I think I'm going to put a little bit on the bridge here. It might look kind of nice. Maybe go a little bit darker on that. Carry that back on these two top pieces here. It looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and assign our weapons. I'll put both of my manual firing weapons on my triggers, playing on Xbox, and then the turret on my third slot. But that'll about wrap it up for this build. The weapon loadout is incredibly powerful in terms of damage output, but I just realized that I forgot a couple structural pieces, very minor. You'll see there, just where the wings attach to those HOPETOWN cross braces, these HOPETOWN Cap A pieces, I forgot to mention. These also are at your outpost landing pad. So no need to go anywhere special for these. I just forgot to mention them. They create kind of a shoulder for where those cross braces connect to the wings. Again, minor. You may like them, you may not. But I just forgot to mention them. So that kind of completes the shoulder of the wing as it attaches to the main part of the ship there. And that'll do it for this variation of the Kom'rk fighter. Now, this does have those C-class Poseidon engines, so it's the slowest top speed of a ship that you could have. But if you want a bit of faster top speed, it'll come at the cost of a bit of cargo, assuming we want to maintain top engine performance, but not as much cargo as you might think. And we can get these engines from Stroud Eklund. These are the Slayton engines, the SA-4330s, which we already have two of on this ship, and the SAE 5660s, which are their B-class siblings. So, like I said, we already have two of those SA 4330s on this ship. We could just get two more to replace those Poseidon engines. Now, that'll only bring our engine power up to 10, so it saves 2 reactor power points. But like I said, if we still want max mobility and engine performance, we're going to need to cut out some cargo. But you will have more power to allocate across your weapon systems. And with the A-class SA-4330s, you'll be getting the highest top speed in the game. So again, we just copy these. You can put some structural pieces on top of those to kind of complete the look. Maybe a couple Deimos spine pieces flipped the other way. Now to get this to actually attach, you'll notice I'm going to have to flip these around. So because their connector points are only on one side and not both, I'll just swap these two. Since both their connectors are facing inward, I'll just do those facing outward on the other side, and then my warning goes away, or my error goes away. But I do have a warning for low mobility, so like I said, we're losing a lot of engine thrust with those, so get rid of a lot of cargo, and fill in the space here, probably with a hab or two, if you want to. Now with these SA-4330s, we can't fit much more mass on our ship before our mobility starts to drop. We really only have up to about 1,040 or so mass with this configuration of just 4 of those engines. So you might think this is crazy. This is getting really close to more of a lightweight fighter at this point because we are getting the second highest top speed in the game with these engines. Now if we wanted just a bit more thrust, we could actually get rid of these SA-4330s and replace them with the SAE 5660s. They're B class, so our top speed is going to drop a little bit. Still be higher than the Poseidons. It'll be 140 instead of the 130 with the Poseidons. But we'll get a bit more maneuvering thrust and overall engine thrust as well, so we can have a bit more mass before we start to lose that engine performance. Now exactly how much more mass can we accommodate with these? Well, we can get up to about 1,400 or so based on my math, and so that'd be another fairly decent size cargo container, probably worth another roughly, let's say, about 1,000 units of cargo, so a decent amount. And this is actually the configuration that I flew this ship in for quite a while, was with these SAE 5660s. So either of these or the Poseidons. I eventually decided to swap them out for the Poseidons and get a bit more cargo space. Now the other thing you could do at this point is change out your grav drive. That would save you a bit of mass, because we cut out so much mass we don't need such a strong grav drive anymore either. Now at this point, let's just go ahead and do a quick walkthrough of the interior of this ship. Now we are entering from the front, which is nice, because most landing bays you're going to have facing where you want to go, facing town. So it's nice to enter from the front. Now we come into the armory here.
Sure, I would be happy to chat.
You'll see a ladder down to our docker. You could use a different version of the docker there. You'd still have kind of a ladder operating in the middle, so either way is fine. Come into our control station. Now, my philosophy has always been do whatever you want with these HABs. I tend to go with a control station, or at least an empty, the new empty versions of the control station, just so I can get some crew slots, because those crew bonuses are significant.
I'm working hard, Captain.
Yeah, I bet you are. And so, particularly to have like Samco, or there's another crew member if you didn't want Cora on your crew, who will boost your top speed, and you can get an extra power point to your engines, and then Omari to that extra power point for your shields, and then either Vasco or Andromeda for an extra just agnostic power point. So easy interior, easy to get around in, decorate it the way you want. And let's take a look at our next ship. Now, this video wouldn't be complete without a walkthrough of the Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter. If you're familiar with this channel, I've done a build video of this ship before. I can link to it, but I thought, why make you click and potentially experience more ads at the startup of that video? I'll just include this here. So let's talk about this ship. Whereas the Kom'rk fighter we showed could either be a kind of heavier hauler or a middle-of-the-road all-arounder with decent cargo, this N1 Starfighter takes us even further that direction, where we can either have it be a decent cargo all-around ship like we show here, or we could actually get the White Dwarf 3015s on this ship to give us the fastest top speed and be a true lightweight fighter if we cut out all the cargo. So we're going to show both of those variants. First, we're going to build the ship as is, kind of the middle of the road with a lot of shielded cargo, and then we'll show how to get those White Dwarf 3015s on it. Now for the modules, we got to start with the reactor. This is key. I rarely use this Fuser DC-403 reactor just because it only has 38 power points, whereas we typically want to get at least 40 if we can. But there's two main reasons I use this reactor. One, it's a Class C reactor, which lets us use Class C parts, and I really wanted to get this Assurance SG-1800 shield on the ship. I felt like we had to get this just for aesthetic reasons, to really look like Mando's N1, but also because it's just the most powerful shield in the entire game in terms of shield health. Now its regen rate is the lowest, but you're getting a ton of shield health out of this shield. The other reason I wanted that Fuser reactor is for a C-class reactor with 38 power points, which is pretty decent, it has connector points on all sides. And the most powerful reactors in the game really only have connector points on the front or on either side. And so this having connector points on all sides was critical for this ship, because it really serves as the foundation piece for all the other pieces to build around, given it's such a streamlined, low-profile ship. For the grav drive, the Aurora 13G grav drive, so similar to the version of our Kom'rk fighter, this gives us at least 28 light years of jump range, which is all we need to go anywhere in the galaxy. And the shield, like we already said, the Assurance SG-1800 shield. Now the engines, these SA-4330s, these have near the highest top speed in the game, and so we're getting a great maneuvering ship, and we can actually fit 6 of them, which is key for us getting as much cargo as we can. And just like the Kom'rk, we're going to use the fact that we can tuck them in front of other pieces to fit them on this ship. And finally, for weapons, similar particle beams to the Kom'rk fighter, the Obliterator auto projectors and the Exterminator 95 MeV auto helium beams. But for my third weapon slot, I'm going with those 280C missile launchers. Those do the highest burst damage of any weapon in the game. Now, their reload time is incredibly slow, but they're also a ton of fun for that high burst damage, so we're going to use those for this ship. Now, for this build, your shopping list is going to include a stop at Tayo Astroneering. You're going to want to get the Himeji Command Bridge from there, which is the highest version of this specific bridge or cockpit. You're also going to get 2 of their Pinpoint 4G landing gear. Those are going to go on each engine nacelle just to give us some extra landing thrust, and their nice rounded shape fits the shape that we want. After that, you're going to go to Stroud Eklund, where you're going to get 6 of the SA-4330 engines. You're also going to want to pick up the Fuser DC-403 reactor while you're there. And also your weapons, the Vanguard Obliterator auto projectors, the Exterminator 95 MEVs, the auto versions, and the missile launchers. Now for this build, what I'm going to show you actually is a little trick. If you ever want to copy paint colors, so select a piece that you want to copy. So like we want some of these, we want to get this yellow color. Now of course, when I go to show you, it's not working. Maybe we'll try a different piece here. It doesn't like these Nova wings, so let's go back and get these Nova cowlings. And we'll find this yellow color, change it slightly, change it back, press OK, and now you've got that color palette in your recent color swatches. So that's a good way to copy a color. So I'm going to get those colors queued up, and then we're going to delete the whole build and we'll build it from scratch. So to start, let's start with the landing bay. We're going to use the Deimos landing bay because it's got a nice kind of curved lines to it, and flip that backwards. And we're going to put a hab, a 2x1, off the fore side of that. Now you actually enter that Deimos landing bay via a ladder going up, so we'll also want to have on the top of that, but for now we're just on this bottom layer. So we're going to get these Deimos wings, change those to the backward facing variants and put those on either side of the back part of the hab, and the Deimos wing B pieces in front of those. Now on the fore side of that hab, we're actually going to put our reactor. And like I mentioned, this is key to the whole build. You see the connector points on all sides. This really holds the entire ship together. Now to the front of that, we're going to put a Stroud nose cap, and we're going to flip it upside down. This is going to be the bottom of the ship, and that piece actually has a weapon mount underneath it, which is one of the few pieces that do. And that's where we're going to put one of our missile launchers. On either side, the Acculanders, we're going to flip those until we get the variant with connector points on all sides. And then we're going to put a lot of Nova wings on either side. That gives us kind of the nose shape of the N1. And then out to the nacelles, we're going to have 2 of these Stroud engine bracers. That will bring us out to the engine nacelle, where we're going to put the Pinpoint 4G landing gear that we picked up from Tayo Astroneering. This has a nice curved shape on the outside, and it's going to form the foundation here of each nacelle. So on the front, we're going to put the Tayo braking engine. And then on the back of this one, on the top, we're going to have our grav drive. It gives a nice open mechanical look to the grav drive. Out to the nacelle. And then 3 of these SA-4330 engines. So here's the first variant. We're going to copy that and flip it. Get that middle variant, copy that and flip it again. And you'll see it connects behind the other one without any glitching. Now we're just going to copy almost all these pieces and move them to the other side, flip them around. The only difference is we obviously don't need 2 grav drives. So instead of a grav drive, we're going to put a fuel tank. we'll go grab our fuel tank. It's this 500T fuel tank. Put that on top. And then same thing, we'll go ahead and grab a copy of our engines, and we'll get 3 of those. We'll use each variant for this other side. We'll see if these will fit right behind that other one without any glitching. So that's how we get 6 of those, which gives us a bit more thrust, which gives us a bit more mass to play with. Now for the front nose of the ship, we're going to use this tile cowling on the front. It has a nice rounded shape. And then right behind that, we're actually going to use a hab piece, a tile hab, the A version, which does not have connector points on the side, so it has a nice smooth, rounded side to it. Now, even though we can't actually get into this hab, it's one of the few pieces that has a nice rounded shape to it. And I'm sorry, I said the A version. We're going to use the B version because we are going to put Nova cowlings on either side. So go ahead and grab these Nova cowling pieces. We'll put one of these on either side, so copy and flip. Attach that to the other side. And then behind our reactor on this second level, we're going to go ahead and grab another hab piece, this Tio 2x1, the B version, again, because we want those connector points on both sides. But behind that, we're going to have a 1x1 Tio, but the A version, so no connector points, because we do want those clean lines for that part. Grab a copy of this Nova cowling, change the variant so it's backward facing. We'll put those in the back there. And then in between those Nova cowlings, we're actually going to put some more fuel tanks. There's some fuel tanks that look almost exactly the same, these M30 Ulysses tanks. So that's a nice way to hide fuel on this ship. And we could use this variant of the Nova cowlings if we didn't need so much fuel. So that's going to depend on your character, your astrodynamic skill, if you have Sarah Morgan on your crew or not. But it's a good way to hide fuel on your ship. If you don't need that extra mass, go ahead and get rid of it. Use the Nova cowlings and you might be able to fit some more cargo on this ship. Now at this point, we're nearly done. We just got to do the back tail and our cockpit or bridge. So I got to find it. We want a Stroud bracer piece. I keep scrolling past it here. Here it is, Stroud engine mount. We're going to flip this 1, 2, I think maybe 3 times, so it's completely upside down. That's going to go off the first of those halves. On top of that, we're going to have this Nova cowling, change the variant so it's backward facing. This is going to give us the tail shape to our N1. And off the back of the Stroud piece, we're going to have some HOPETOWN pipes to continue kind of that pipe shape or look. And then off the back of that, this other Nova cowling flipped backwards to be the end of the tail there. Now all that's remaining is just our cockpit. So we're going to go ahead and grab this Himeji command bridge that we got from Tio Astroneering. Gives us a bit more cargo. If you didn't want to use this, you could use a lesser version. It'll save you a bit on mass, but you'll lose out on some cargo. And then for our docker, it's actually going to sit up top, and this is going to be where Grogu sits, if he existed in the game. And now for our weapons. Let's get those Vanguard Obliterator auto-projectors. We're going to have 6 of those. Thankfully, these Nova wings have 2 weapon mounts each, so we can fit these on pretty easily. And for a particle beam weapon, these are pretty small, and so they can fit on the tops of those Nova wings as well, which is nice. Go ahead and put all 6 of those on our ship. Even if we can't fully power them, they'll all start with a full magazine of ammo, which does a lot of initial damage. Go ahead and put our Exterminator 95 MEVs on. Now we're going to grab a equipment plate, put that on the front here, on that Tio hab, and put our 3rd Exterminator on that, just to keep things symmetrical, because we can only have 3 of those weapons. And for our missiles, the 280C missile launcher, we can have 3 of these. So we're going to undermount them, 1 to that middle Stroud cap, and then 2 on those Deimos wing B pieces. And last but not least, our Assurance SG-1800 shield to complete the look of our ship. We'll put that right on top of the reactor there. Now let's go ahead and give it a coat of paint. I'm going to start by painting the whole thing a gray. It might be a little bit light of a gray. I might try and go a little bit darker. And like we found with the Kom'rk fighter, some of these pieces accept the same paint color in different brightness levels or luminosity levels. So you might want to play with that if you're particular about it. And then I like to put just some highlights of that Naboo Starfighter yellow. So we'll put some of those on the Nova wings. I like to put a couple of them on the secondary colorway of these Nova cowlings. Something like that. Gives it a nice highlight, makes it distinctive. Go ahead and assign both of our particle beams to weapon slots 1 and 2 and the missiles to the 3rd slot. And all we're missing at this point is just a bit of cargo. So I went with shielded cargo. You can get this from the Red Mile in the Parima system if you want. Or shielded cargo has a little bit less cargo to mass than other types of cargo. Up to you what you'd like here. But we can get quite a bit of cargo on this because we're able to fit those 6 SA-4330s. Now, just to get our max stats, if you want, I'm going to show you we have enough mass to handle it. Scan jammer to go with your shielded cargo, put that on the back. You can get that from the Red Mile or from the Cruiser Fleet. And then the comm spike and the conduction grid, you're able to get those if you do the Crimson Fleet quest line. Just to boost our stats a little bit further. And that's generally how I fly this ship, with a bit of cargo, and these engines are plenty fast. But if we want them to be even faster, we can swap them out for the White Dwarf 3015s. Now, if we do that, you'll notice our mobility does drop. That's because these, we can only have 4 of them versus the 6 of the SA-4330s. They have about the same amount of maneuvering thrust, and actually a bit more engine thrust. But because we can only have 4 of them versus the 6, our total maneuvering thrust is, less by a third. And so if we want that top mobility, we're gonna have to cut some mass. So we'll go ahead and get rid of these cargo pieces. You'll see our mobility still isn't quite at 100. We'll probably have to get rid of those other 2. To fill out the space in here, I'm gonna go ahead and grab, there's a Nova bracer piece. Forget the name. There it is, Nova bracer. Go ahead and put that underneath the grav drive and the fuel tanks, just to fill up that space. It only has 3 mass, so it doesn't cost us much. And we cut out both the cargo. Let's go ahead and look at our grav drive. We probably have more grav jump thrust than we need, so we probably don't need that 13G. We can probably get the 12G. And let's see, yep, even the 11G gets us plenty. We still got 30 light years of jump range, so that saves us quite a bit of mass. So we'll swap that out. Now we're at 1012 for our mass. Let's go ahead and look at swapping out some of this fuel. Now my character has a maxed astrodynamic skill. You can also put Sarah Morgan on your crew, but this will save us. These Nova cowlings are only 3 mass, and those other M30 fuel tanks were 18, so that saves us a lot of mass as well. Total mass we need to stay under is 1020, so we're at 952 right now, so we've got some space for probably 1 smaller cargo piece. But for this type of a build, we're really prioritizing top speed, and with the White Dwarf 3015s and Samco on your crew, if you boost away, you'll have plenty of time for your shields to recharge. It basically makes you invincible, which is why we work so hard to get rid of that mass. So however you choose to build these ships, whether you go for Class C engine like the Poseidons on the Kom'rk fighter to get more cargo space, or you go completely the other way and do the White Dwarf 3015 variant of the N1, I don't think you can go wrong. They're all powerful versions of these ships, so enjoy them. And that's it for the build. Hope you enjoy this one. This is one of my favorite ships. And until next time.
I have spoken.